Welcome to Leading with Empathy and Allyship. I'm Melinda Briana Epler, founder and CEO of Empovia, formerly Change Catalyst. I'm also the author of How to Be an Ally and your host for this show. What is allyship? Allyship is empathy in action. We learn what people are uniquely experiencing, we show empathy for their experience, and we take action. And as a part of that process, we learn and unlearn and relearn. We work to avoid unintentionally harming people with our words and actions. We advocate for people, and we lead the change on our teams, in our organizations, and across our communities. In this episode, you'll learn tangible, actionable steps that you can take to lead the change, to be a more inclusive leader, no matter what your role is. Want to learn more? Visit empovia.co, empovia.co, to check out more of my work. All right, let's get started. Hello and welcome again to Season 10. We have a special guest today. He's a co-host of today's podcast, also my co-founder and advisor and husband, Wayne Sutton. We'll be talking about our new announcement today, a big announcement. And if you haven't heard it yet, we'll announce it here in this podcast. And also, we'll talk about 10 years of doing diversity, equity, and inclusion around the world through multiple industries, what it looks like to create change within industries. We'll share some tips that we learned along the way, the impact that we've had, and where we're headed next. So welcome, Wayne.
Hi, Melinda. Long time no see.
And for those of you who don't know, we're literally in one. Wayne is in our living room, and I am in our office. So we are in close quarters here. And so before we get started, we'll describe ourselves for anybody who is blind or low vision and on YouTube. So I'm a white woman with long blonde and red hair. I'm wearing glasses and a long sleeve navy blouse. And in the same background I always describe is on one side, we have my book with a bright orange cover and several plants around it. And on the other side, a narrow bookshelf that has a plant cascading down it, plus books of folks who have joined us over the last many years. It's the 3 years doing the podcast.
Awesome. I am a bald-headed Black man wearing glasses with a washed-out San Francisco city skyline in the back. Next to the skyline is a window with a table with a red plant pot. With a light and some air plants on the wall, with a teal couch with some medicine balls on the back that I forgot to remove.
Awesome. And our interpreters today are Amy and Haley from Interpreter Now. You can learn more about them at www.interpreter-now.com. So Wayne, I'm actually going to turn it over to you. I know you have some questions and you're going to kind of guide the conversation today. Oh, I love it.
Yes, it's going to dive into the
He's
questions.
rubbing his hands.
Yes, I get to be the host. I get to be the host of the famous Leading with Empathy and Allyship podcast that has been going on for 10 years. Thanks for having me.
Three years. 3 years?
Oh, yeah. Been doing the work for 10 years. Podcast been going for 3 years. Thank you.
Yes.
How the time has flown.
No kidding.
So let's jump into it. So Change Catalyst is now Empovia, the transformation. Big name, cool brand. I like it. You like it. We like it. Team like it. What's the expanded vision behind the Empovia rebrand? Yeah,
well, we took a step back after about 10 years of doing this work. We took a step back and really evaluated where we are now, how the world is different from when we started, how our clients' needs are changing, and where are the gaps still in the market, and where are the gaps in really driving diversity, equity, and inclusion, and sustainability as well. We are honing specifically on learning and development. The pandemic definitely changed our work to some degree. We we've been refocusing over the last 3 years essentially, and now we're fully focused on learning and development. Meeting organizations also where they are in the current economy was really important as well. So 2 things. One is the name. Our name is different. It's Empovia. It comes from our tagline, empowering inclusive innovation, which we've used for a long time. And so we're excited to come to have those values embedded in our tagline, shorter name. The EMP for us is about empowering, empowered, empathy, really driving change from those standpoints of empowered learning through training, speaking, coaching, and now e-learning. So that's number 2 is we're really doubling down on our learning and development, recognizing where organizations are in the current economy and perhaps having to do more with less when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, with budgets contracting in the current market. So we've been wanting to do e-learning for a long time, and now is the time. And so we've we're launching an e-learning platform in addition to our rebrand. And with that, we're giving people the tools and frameworks and the actionable steps people need to create the change they want to see in the world, to build their inclusive leadership skills. And really part of that work is those actionable skills and tools and a safe space for people to practice those tools that they've learned, and then at the end, provide people with an action plan too. So in our e-learning, you'll come away with an action plan to really move forward on your journey.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. As you know, we've been doing this work for a long time, as we said, and empathy is a constant need in the world from when we started in 2015, 2014 to now. Empathy. So I hope humans see the word Empovia and get the empathy and get the innovation and also take the courses that you just talked about. And the world needs it. The world needs it.
Yeah.
What makes Empovia special today, essential in today's world? You alluded to it some, but can you dive more into that?
Yeah. When we started 10 years ago, there weren't very many organizations focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, quite frankly. So we did a lot. We did a lot of different things. We worked on strategy. We worked on really driving change across organizations in a lot of different ways, including training and coaching and strategic development and all of that. And we also worked on events as well to really drive change across industries and to build awareness. It's different now. There are many organizations that are focused on creating change around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is amazing. And so now we have the ability to really focus on where are there still some gaps? Where do we still need more work to really deepen the impact that we can have as industries, as companies, and as individuals. And that is learning and development, that's where the individual behavior change really happens. Each one of us has to change our behavior in order to radically shift our companies, our organizations, our industries, and the world ultimately. And so we have, over the last 10 years, really built a strong baseline and research and training practices that are focused on behavioral science and change management of really how do you create that individual change? How do you drive individual change? How do you create change within organizations? And so we're putting that all together and expanding that work significantly, and then making it available on demand. Nice. So we've worked with a number of organizations over the years on training and coaching, and now we have the ability to really scale that in a way through e-learning as well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think about how in the beginning, a lot of companies wanted dramatic change around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and at the organization, they want it to change overnight, and we know it doesn't work that way. And like you were saying, we built up this ecosystem and work within and out of the tech industry and other industries for people to see that it doesn't happen overnight. and that they do need an individual change, like you were saying. And with how the market has changed with Empovia and the platform, it really allows individuals to learn on their own time, because which is different than the work, a lot of work you've been doing, where especially pre-pandemic, it was different. It's different from where a lot of workshops were held at, in companies and offices, and some talks given at all hands, some talks given to the ERG groups. And this is really, like you're saying, on this taking your experience of behavior change and applying that online where people get not the help, but the learning that they need. Some people need help too, but the learning that they need.
Yeah. And I think, we want to change systems and processes. Ultimately, we want to create an equitable world, equitable workplace, right? How do you do that? You have to teach people how to do that, right? People don't necessarily know how to change those hiring practices, how to create more inclusive promotion structures and reviews and compensation and so on. And how do you teams and people managers, people leaders don't necessarily know how to build an inclusive team, right? They need the skills. They need to learn the skills to be able to do that effectively. They need to know what works, what doesn't work. And so that's where that training comes in. That's also where inclusive leadership coaching comes in for the individuals that want the deeper work into really investigating that internal emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, the learning and the unlearning and relearning, and then how do you activate yourself to become an inclusive leader? So, yeah, it's I'm excited about it. It's something that we've been focused on learning and development since the beginning, and now we can really focus on it and exclusively and make it available for a lot more people, and also make it cheaper for organizations where those budgets are at. Unfortunately, that is the world that we're in at the moment. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Well, looking back in terms of reflecting on Change Catalyst accomplishments, what fills you with the most pride? We've done a lot in 10 years. So what makes you what makes you smile when you think about you did that. You led that.
Well, we led it. I would say we did. And we didn't do it alone either. Thank you. As the CEO, there's some yes. And we definitely, I didn't do it alone. We didn't do it alone. There have definitely been amazing people that we've worked with along the way that have helped us do this work. But yes, I there are a few things, and I think that the macro level I'm really proud of is the moving industries, especially the tech industry. We started in the tech industry. We've definitely gone beyond the tech industry now and moved into many different industries, but we really started out focused on how do we change the tech industry. And just a little backstory on that is during the summer of 2013, 2014, Wayne and I were sitting on a couch in our living room saying, you know what? We got to create change, and this is not working for either of us working in the tech industry, and it's not working in general. You and I have both been working on creating change for some time, and Wayne said, "Well, why don't we do a conference? Let's do a conference." And I was like, "Okay, what does that look like?" It was a little bit doubtful at first, and we were like, "Oh yeah, we'll just do a conference." You convinced me pretty quickly. We'll just do a conference, and it turned out to be a lot more difficult than we'd originally thought it would be, to really build the trust and to create the, that safe space for people to share best practices. And so, from that couch sitting to many years later, we have done tech inclusion conferences around the world, many different cities around the world, and when we first started, it was so hard to bring people in to those conferences. It was, it took a lot of one-on-one engagement with people to build that trust and get people to come, get people out of their silos and to share best practices. And so from that to having tech CEOs on stage the very next year, and to really moving whole ecosystems, especially those when we went to the tech industry and the markets where the tech industry was just forming, we were one of the first to really have these conversations in a public space. And there, I think we affected even more change, frankly, because we helped those ecosystems, those local ecosystems, to begin forming in a more inclusive way. We also worked with the Kauffman Foundation and local mayors and local governments on how do you build these inclusive tech ecosystems from the beginning. And so that is, I think, from the macro level, working across the industries, working across regions, and fundamentally helping shift them is something I'm deeply proud of. And then at the macro and the micro level, that's the macro level. The micro level, the inclusive leadership coaching that I do one-on-one, where in the beginning a leader is, maybe they're in denial or they're completely afraid to do anything, and to move them over time from that to be an advocate, to being really fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. That behavior change over time is also, I'm equally proud of that, because that does impact whole organizations. That impacts, it has a ripple effect far beyond that one individual too.
Yeah. So if you had to pick one thing you're proud of, what would it be?
Well, I think it is the work in the tech industry to really help drive change across the tech industry. It was fundamentally different when we started.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, yeah. If I had to pick one, there's a sense of pride I have of pulling off something that people said couldn't be done, and doing it dramatically different than how it was done before. And I think about the Tech Inclusion Conference we did at the Palace of Fine Arts, and then we also did at the Armory. Those events were super, impactful, made me proud. And then combine the events we did in Detroit, Michigan, Nashville, Tennessee. Those were, to me, extremely important, because people always, when we went, people say there's a tech culture, there's a tech ecosystem there, which was true, because we saw the Silicon Valley transplant happening from the Silicon Valley to other cities, some smaller markets, and bringing the negative behavior of Silicon Valley and stereotype, pattern matching, hiring bias, pattern matching, and lack of funding for in terms of local entrepreneurs. So we saw that the negative change go to some of these different cities: Detroit, Austin, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee. And the voices of the underrepresented people were not being heard. Mm-hmm. And they reached out to us, or we reached out to them. But either way, we partnered with the local community to host those events and collaborate with the existing tech ecosystem, with underrepresented people in the community who are in tech or want to be in tech, and help build bridges to not go down the downward path or the incorrect path that people have made in Silicon Valley around lack of D&I, lack of diverse people in roles, lack of diverse people in venture capital funding. And those events were special. But the big events we did in the city, because as you said, Tech Inclusion Conference was something was different. Like, it really hadn't been done before, because for me and a lot of other underrepresented people, we would go to this tech conference and we'd be like, maybe out of 1,000 people, maybe 5 Black people, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe no Black people, no brown people on stage, very few or if any women on stage. And we were like, well, we're going to have a whole conference where that's who's speaking. Black and brown people, we're going to make it accessible. We're going to do interpreters. We're going to make sure that it's inclusive for people who are deaf, who are blind. And we're going to talk about tech things. It's not just going to be all about people. It's going to talk about tech. And we're talking about culture as well. And the first one was in galvanizing the basement. Couldn't move. It's a big basement. So many people. It was a big basement. But it was huge. Like, you couldn't move so many people. Yeah. And that's when we at the Palace of Fine Arts. And I remember one of my mentors came up to me. He was like, great job. Mm-hmm. I'm impressed. Yeah, that's something that we're going to forget.
Yeah.
And then after that, a lot of people literally started copying the formula, some reached out, and some people who were speaking copied the formula, saw that we did it, and then they went on to do their own conference, their own things, and so forth. And so you never know the impact you have by taking a risk.
Yeah. And we'll never fully know the ripple impact that we had on people, on individuals, on organizations, on the industry.
Yeah. People, we had a career fairs, we eventually had a career fair, but people got jobs from speaking on that stage, or shifted companies from just speaking at the very first event, because people were like, wow, I didn't know you, or either they were impressed with people speaking. So it changed a lot of people's lives. And these are stories we were told.
Yeah. And we kept hearing at that time, there's a pipeline issue. There's a pipeline issue. There's a pipeline issue. That's why we don't have diverse talent. Or like, okay, well, maybe there's a little bit of a pipeline issue because there's an issue in education as well. But there's a lot more diverse talent. There's a lot more underrepresented talent than you think. So we'll bring them to you with our career fairs, and the number of recruiters that attended our career fairs and gave the feedback that, wow, I wasn't expecting to see actual talent, and here they are. We created a safe space for them to acknowledge that. Great. And that impact, has a ripple effect. Like now they know there is quality underrepresented talent out there. And, that was essential to changing the ecosystem.
Yeah, agreed. But let's just jump on a little bit. I put my host hat back on.
Okay.
We talked about the conference. We talked about some of the career fair. We can get some of that. We can go back to that. What I did want to say that, as you mentioned, the career fair eventually, over the years, we had over 11,000 job seekers to connect with hundreds of companies over the years. So that was awesome. But we look at the job market today, compared to, say, pre-pandemic or the last couple of years, how do you think it's evolved in terms of companies looking for hire underrepresented talent to how it is right now, and how it is right now, and what do you think companies and individuals should be doing to create change still?
Yeah. The numbers have changed for sure. The percentage wise, there are more diverse people in tech companies now. Back when we started, we thought that they would change a lot more than they have. Turns out that there's multiple systemic issues and a lot more work that needs to be done on individuals and across systems and processes. But it has changed. And what's different over the last 3 years is after George Floyd was murdered, and companies basically dealt with an internal reckoning of, we have to do something. Our employees are demanding it. And what we've seen differently is more focus on leadership. So not just at the entry level, but a focus on talented and underrepresented talent at the leadership level, and really the board level as well, especially the board level. Actually, there's a lot more work to be done, because you can't just go from 0 to 100. You can't just say suddenly, oh, now we care about diverse leadership and expect them all to be there, because you haven't done the work to bring people up in their careers and give them opportunities. So there's that work of, you bring in underrepresented talent. Now you have to work to retain them. Now you have to work to make sure that they're not experiencing acts of exclusion, biases, microaggressions, ways that people are kept from being promoted. You have to give people opportunities. And so I think it's at the middle of the organization that really a lot of work still needs to happen, where we're still seeing huge gaps between the representation from the early career people in tech and then managers and directors and above. There's so much work that needs to happen there.
Yeah. I also had, with the current market in tech, especially, like I said, last 3 years, and George Floyd murder, but then also the pandemic, where, as you and I talked about, inside, is some companies overhire, and then some companies, they didn't overhire, but they're just not doing well in the current market. So a lot of people have been let go, and a lot of the resources for ERG groups or diversity inclusion training or culture training budgets have been cut, and so I would say there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of fear in the current job market. There's a lot of uncertainty around, is tech industry for certain individuals, because we still celebrate and put up on a pedestal certain type of individuals, of CEOs and product managers and so forth. But as a nerd and a geek, there's still a lot of excitement in the tech industry and the job market, and this uncertainty where we are right now. I've seen it in 2008, I've seen it prior to that as well, where the tech industry always put a bias to people who can just build fast, right? Or people who talk and look a certain way, the pattern matching. And so I'm seeing kind of the same patterns from 2008 of typical type A founder or individual who can build something with AI and say, and look cool and be like, okay, yes, this is going to change the world and get access to capital. And then tech companies are slow on hiring. So with a crowded market, individuals have to do a lot more to stand out to get a job. And I say all that to say that, for underrepresented individuals and diverse individuals trying to get a job in tech now, your network is what's important, right? It's always been important, but your network and then how you show up and communicate is hyper important today than what it was, I say, pre-pandemic and 10 years ago. It's even more.
Yeah. And I think, for on the company side, and not the company side, but on the leadership side, on the HR, DEI side, and on the hiring manager side, that is, when we have fear and when we're stressed, we tend to default to our biases more. Pattern matching is all about bias. It's all about, we see a specific education that we know is going to be successful. And so we just take that candidate. We see a certain type of person that's going to fit in better. And so we take that candidate in before people that we just don't know, right? And you really, especially in the current economy, especially when things are more uncertain, you need the diversity. You need people to be challenging decisions that are being made. You need people with diverse experiences to say, what about this? What about that? I'm not sure if this is working right here, right? That's what you need right in this moment. And so anybody who is a hiring manager, stop for a moment and slow down and remember why a diverse team is important. Remember that people on your team might be extra stressed. They might be extra, especially if you're doing rolling layoffs, there's definitely less trust, less psychological safety, less feeling of belonging. And so you have to work hard to create those spaces so that people still can get from that amygdala response of stress, where everything is really shut down and they're just focused on what they absolutely have to a space where people feel safe to be more innovative, that trust each other again. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's a really important thing to do right now.
Yeah. And that's where Empovia comes in. Because
yes,
if you're a hiring manager, you're someone in a leadership role, and you're a recruiter, and you need your own, you need to take an eLearning course on how to be a better leader, a better manager, go to Empovia. Just hire Empovia. That's what you should do. Shameless plug, not shameless plug.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you need a trusted space to learn how to do that effectively if you don't know it. Yeah, and so that's what we have worked hard to create over time.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So, in addition to Tech Inclusion, the conference, that we hosted. Change Catalyst has consulted with numerous companies over the years, ranging from startups to VCs, Fortune 100 companies. We worked with Figma when they just got started. I remember Figma, hey, we just Figma. We
tiny
need
little
some help.
organization. Yeah,
we need help. And I worked with Google, of course, Reddit, Salesforce, Asana, Kaiser Permanente, Zillow, Indeed. I'm just name dropping right now. Worked with Amazon, VMware, WP Engine, and many more. As Melinda, also, like you said, Kauffman Foundation. That was a big partnership we had with Kauffman Foundation.
Yeah. Plus a lot of, those were all tech companies. We mostly tech companies. We worked with a lot of, product companies, Coca-Cola, education, UC Berkeley, financial institutions, and architecture and engineering firms too. Yeah.
I can't leave out our colleagues and our friends at Indeed as well. So when you think about all those companies over the years, what kind of impact would you look at? What kind of impact would you say that we've had at those organizations? And also, what did we learn from collaborating with those companies as well?
Yeah, I think one is, what we've learned is related to the impact, where the more impact that we have made is in organizations where we've been able to affect change across different aspects of the organization. When we work with the leadership team to really deepen their understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion, to create inclusive leadership skills, to understand where they need how to develop empathy for people. Some leaders that doesn't come naturally. And so working with them to deepen their empathy skills and then activate allyship, understand where microaggressions are occurring and interrupt them, and then develop those companies that are more diverse, equitable, and inclusive overall. So working at that leadership level, I think, is really important. And that's where we've made the most impact, is when we are able to work with leadership teams and then roll it out across management teams as well. And then across organizations too, whether that is, doing a series of keynotes across the organizations, or ideally doing e-learning across organizations and really scaling that work across all the teams and of an organization.
Yeah. I think about Reddit when we work with them. Should probably follow up with Steve, CEO of Reddit, one of these days. But it was an interesting time for Reddit when they hired us, because Steve had just came back. I think Steve and Alexis had just came back to be CEOs, and there was this culture change. It's almost this culture war happening internally. Where you had the former CEO, Ellen, was there and had left. And then Steve and Alexis came back, and new teams were being hired and new teams were being formed. And they wanted to really, get it right in terms of hiring and culture. And we advised them on that. And I think about that in terms of what we learned, what I learned. Because, I often used to look at these tech companies and these CEOs, and not just CEOs, but a lot of the tech companies and the people in position, as like they had all the answers. They knew everything, right? And it was a very eye-opening moment for me, just to see when you do have people in leadership roles who are willing to learn, who are not coming in and just say, this is my way or the highway. Like we see some CEOs now, calling anyone out, but they were willing to learn. And Caitlin, who was there also, hired us and really allowed us to work together and do a good assessment. I remember you interviewing the head of product, interviewing the head of engineering, and talk about their experience, where they come from, and looking at, okay, if you bring a head of engineering from Microsoft, a head of product from Pinterest, a CEO coming back from his second startup, you actually have a culture chaos happening here. And we did an assessment and put together a report, and I believe I know it was very valuable for the organization at the time to really have that, to give people who were there for a long time and people who had just started a sense of calmness, or at least less less things to worry about, to focus on their job, to know that this culture could be a mess right now, but they're working on it, right? And sometimes that's all, there's a plan. And sometimes that's all companies and individuals need to know is that they're working on it, right? They give them some hope that the culture could improve, and how it is today may not be how it's always going to be.
Yeah, and I think that the working with that leadership team, that was near when we first started. So this was a long time ago. And one of the things about a leadership team is people do have different motivations. People do have different kind of ideas about where they want the culture to go. And you have to create that safe space for people to really identify what it is that is driving them, and find the access point for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then work with them on sculpting it together. You can't just like hand somebody, this is what you need to do. You have to work with leaders and really identify where their pain points are, where their issues are with culture, and then work together on how to solve all of that together. And that was a key piece that I learned, was in working with that team and finding a solution that everybody felt good about.
Yeah.
It was a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I think there's been a lot of cases with some of the companies we work with. Think about Indeed, where they hire new people in positions, and they need, our expertise and your expertise around behavior change to help reduce some of the friction. For when you bring in different people, especially diverse people in leadership roles, and you have existing culture there, and people are not used to things people don't like change, right? Everybody's not say people, I don't want a broad term, but everybody doesn't always like change. So that was a good experience as well.
Yeah, definitely.
When I think about, let's shift gears. Let's talk about tech ecosystem some. We have alluded to it, but how has the tech ecosystem and culture evolved since our work with these organizations over the years?
Yeah, I'm going to give a tiny bit of a backstory where when we first started doing this work, we realized we couldn't just say we have all the answers, here it is. We did a lot of work to, we had a lot of conversations with people. We looked at the data, the little data that was there. We took our own knowledge and experience, and we mapped out the ecosystem. Where are all of the issues within the ecosystem? And then where could we pull the levers to create change? And that took some time to really, figure that out. But then we were able to take it to all those different ecosystems that we talked about earlier, the Nashville, the Detroit, and London and Melbourne and so on. And so what's different is there are a few things. We found there were multiple components. The media wasn't talking about diversity or inclusion very much until that year 2014, right? When the diversity numbers, was it 2013? I can't remember.
14, yeah.
14. When the first diversity numbers from the tech industry started coming out. So the media started to write about it a little bit, but we wanted to enroll the media more. So we did, we put them on stage. And then education and policy. So we brought the White House to our first Tech Inclusion Conference, and been working on policy as well, and then workplace, and then investment or entrepreneurship. And so we talked a lot about a workplace. What we haven't talked as much about yet is, and I think we've talked about the changes that we've seen in the tech industry companies. What we haven't talked about is that entrepreneurship ecosystem. And it has changed. It has changed significantly. Yes, it can definitely change more because the numbers are not very big there either. And unfortunately, over the last few years, we made a lot of progress. Not a lot. We made progress when it came to investment in women-owned companies and Black and brown-owned companies. Those are only things that are measured most of the time. Sorry. For the rest of us, disability-owned companies is not measured, and so on. But we made some progress.
Latina companies as well.
Latinx, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or Hispanic, and we made progress in the ecosystem. And then the pandemic hurt a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs, especially people who are underrepresented that didn't have the friends and family to help in with the finances when times got tough and so on. So, but then after George Floyd was murdered, there was a big investment in Black companies and Black-owned companies in particular. And I think that is still, there's not all of that money has been allocated. There's lots of, issues with it, but generally there were some additional funding sources that have continued. There's a lot more to be done there.
Yeah.
And it is not changing as much as we would want it to be. What do you think? What do you think there?
Yeah, it's interesting. The tech culture change. We finally got away from, when I'm talking about a lot here, a lot in terms of Black tech ecosystem. We finally got away from being able to name, 2 to 5 individuals who are a Black woman or a Black man who has raised venture capital, to now we know we have hundreds. So still nowhere near the thousands of non-Black entrepreneurs, but that has changed, and that's grateful. That's grateful. It's awesome to see. And we have seen way more Black-led VC firms as well. 99.8% of those Black-led VC firms are led by a Black man, which shouldn't be the case. There should be more Black women. There's more, but it should be as equal amount of more Black women. Actually, no. Black women are the leading or the highest grossing entrepreneurs in the market. So it shouldn't be that there's 99.8% Black men VC firms. Actually, should be more Black women VC firms based on the numbers. If Black women are more successful entrepreneurs, why are there not more Black women VC firms?
Yeah,
don't get it anyway. Done with that rant.
And I think there's the issue too is that there are definitely more opportunities for Black-owned companies to get investment, but they're $20,000, $5,000, $10,000.
So the checks are smaller. There's still more like just talking about Black for a minute, is that the checks are smaller. There's more Black VC firms than were 5-10 years ago. There's more Black entrepreneurs. There's more Latinx entrepreneurs, more Latinx VC firms, more women VC firms. So the numbers have improved. Overall, numbers prove everything is, not say better, but it has went up.
Yeah.
It went up, like you're saying, in 2022, and now they're going back down again because of the market and everything.
Went up in 2019, down, took another dip, and down again.
But if we look at the numbers, it's still very low. If we look at, let's say go beyond the numbers, there is more of what's the word I'm looking for? Celebratory. That's not a word. Is that a
Celebratory,
word?
yeah.
Yes, celebratory culture in the ecosystem, entrepreneur ecosystem, especially for Latinx, Black, brown individuals, because we have more examples and we've seen the impact of their success as it has had on their local ecosystem or their families, or even just tech culture as a whole. There's a lot of people who have raised venture capital done extremely well. But as we know, it's not just about venture capital. It's people who we can drop names, but who were turned down from Silicon Valley and went on to create multi-million-dollar businesses as well. So things are better, but there's a lot of work to do still.
Yeah, and I think in several different times along this conversation, we've talked about the economy and how it has contracted budgets when it comes to workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion, and entrepreneurship investments in underrepresented founders. And I think that is a big key learning that I have had over the last 10 years is that we still aren't at a point yet where diversity, equity, and inclusion is not a nice to have, but it's a must have, that especially when things are getting bad from an economic standpoint, especially when you're doing layoffs, that's when these programs, this work is extra important. And that is, I think, the shift that still needs to happen. That and that only comes when every single one of us advocates for those budgets not to be cut. Every single one of us says, hey, are you looking at representation when we're doing layoffs? Hey, what are we doing to rebuild an inclusive culture after layoffs? What are we doing to make sure that we are going to survive the next wave in the economy by having a diverse and inclusive team? Yeah.
Agreed. And you can learn how to do that on Empovia.com.
Yeah, I got passionate about that because it is frustrating to see, so many people are doing this work and really working to create change. And we need that consistency in order to move change forward. And so I am excited to launch more low-cost solutions around e-learning, where individuals can still work to learn the skills that they need to be better leaders on their own, even when their company isn't investing in that right now, and that we can also roll it out to organizations that need to lower costs but still want to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah.
And leadership and empathy and belonging and culture and all the good things that humans should just be taking in as a whole. So we're on this podcast. This is 3 years of doing the podcast. Changecast launched the podcast in 2020. In the pandemic, you have done over 100 episodes. Why did you feel the need to launch a podcast in the middle of a pandemic? You're also writing a book. What was the vision behind this podcast?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time. And when the pandemic hit, speaking of budget contractions, that was, that happened really early during the pandemic in February, March. Immediately, those budgets were starting to contract and we had more time, and it was a good time to launch it. Also, there were a lot of people that were looking for connections. And so we originally launched it in live events so people could connect with one another at the same time. And there's just so many powerful voices of leaders in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, activists that are advocating for change regularly. And at the same time, so many people that are looking for answers and looking for solutions. What can I do to be a better ally? And so all that, I wanted to put it all out there and just showcase leaders in the field, to give people those actionable steps to build empathy and activate allyship in a way that we couldn't do in any other media. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Who has been some of the most notable guests?
Oh,
Or your favorite guests, or just one of your favorite guests?
Yeah, I think, this season we're launching with a few powerful guests like Brian Bucky, who we worked with at AWS and Amazon Web Services, and has been an ally for a long time, and is going to talk about how to build allyship programs. And we just Natalia Villalobos was the end of our last season, and she has been she was there at the beginning of our work together and has supported us along the way. And so super excited about her. And then we had the president of Microsoft.
And now she's at New York Times. Yeah.
Yes. Now she's the VP of Inclusion at the New York Times. Exactly. And we've had so many incredibly powerful guests over the years. I encourage you to kind of go to ally.cc and scroll through and see all of the amazing guests we've had. And if you haven't listened to every episode, because there's so many fantastic people.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, Empovia, new name, eLearning. Why should companies in today's economy, you touched on this, but why should companies seek Empovia service, and especially in today's climate?
Oh, well,
Give me the pitch. Why they need Empovia?
Empovia is a trusted learning partner. We've been doing this work for 10 years. We really focus on creating that behavior change, using science, using research to really drive our content and move people from awareness to action. And so whether you're looking for a long leadership series around inclusive leadership, or you're looking for, one conversation to get things started. We work with some early companies focused on diversity and inclusion for the first time, or you're looking to roll out training across your organization. We would love to talk with you and learn how we might be able to partner together. We partner with you, and we really work to drive change across your organization using understanding your goals and customizing our learning for you. So, awesome. Yeah, I mean, we have a diverse team of amazing learning designers, and this is what we do. We love doing it, and love working with our partners.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, my hosting responsibilities are done. Thanks for watching, everyone, and check out Empovia, and we hope you reach out soon.
Thank you for being part of our community. You'll find the show notes and a transcript of this episode at ally.cc. There you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter with additional tips. The show is produced by Empovia, a trusted learning and development partner offering training, coaching, and a new e-learning platform with on-demand courses focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can learn more at empovia.co. That's EMPOVIA.co. Allyship is empathy in action, right? So what action will you take today?